My name is Dana, and I love food. I love to experiment with food, look at, document, eat beautiful food, and of course, talk about food. It's my love language. I moved to Claremont, New Hampshire not long ago and started a little online community of food lovers called Claremont Cooks. I wanted to try and get to know people with similar interests to my own. Our group shares photos of our culinary creations for each other to enjoy and to try. And we highlight the food-focused people and shops in our little slice of New England. Now we want to invite you to our culinary circle. We'll be bringing in local food lovers and makers, their food memories, and individual tips, tricks, recipes, and more so you can watch and enjoy. Welcome to Community of Fare. Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Community of Fare, our new community cooking show where we're going to highlight local culinary artists, as we'll say, that just have a passion for food. So our first guest today is going to be Jason Benware, and he is going to highlight wild game and foraged foods, which, not being a native of New Hampshire, I'm not super used to. So tell me a little bit about how you kind of got into it and, what your passion's all about in that regard.
Well, so ever since I've been a kid, I've always looked at stuff and said, geez, I wonder if I can eat that. Mm-hmm. And I've always been an adventurous eater. My mom was a really good cook, but she was a very New England cook, which meant it was going to be meat and potatoes.
Your standard,
So her deal was
food.
simply, if you want something different, then cook it yourself. So I've learned throughout time how to cook from an early age. And my family, we hunt, we fish, we do all of those things. So I just want to be able to do it the best that I can. And I've often hear people say, I really don't like wild game. It's gamey. I don't like the way it tastes. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, however, it's just the way that it's been prepared or the way it's been butchered or a combination of the two. I think people are kind of scared of it, so they tend to cook it till it's really dead. And
right. It's like the temperature-wise and everything like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that sort of approach that people had to cooking pork forever.
Oh, okay.
Where they thought, oh, it's going to kill me, so I got to cook it until it's way, way past done.
Got it.
Wild game, especially venison, which is what I'm going to be cooking tonight, if it's been frozen and then it's thawed out, any real risk of getting parasites from anything has been dissipated by that. Okay. So you can cook it medium. You can cook it to 135, 140 degrees, and it tastes good.
You don't have to worry about it.
Wild game, if you cook it well done, it's lean, so it gets dry.
Okay.
And then it also can get kind of gamey. And with venison especially, if you fail to trim the fat off of it, that's kind of like lamb fat. And if you've ever had that, it's kind of tallowy. But if you take it all off, it's excellent. Huh. So you'll see what I'm cooking tonight. It doesn't have any fat on it. It's very
perfectly
lean.
butchered.
And if you're worried about that, it's also healthy, except the way I cook it probably has got more fat than
fat is flavor, Jason.
Absolutely. I think that's the difference between restaurant cooking and cooking at home is fat and salt.
Yep.
So we're going to have plenty of that today.
Fantastic. No, I'm excited. And just talking to you kind of before the show, it sounds like you just have such a great background and knowledge of it. So I'm very excited to have you here for our first episode. And I'm really excited to hear your techniques and see how it goes, and for everyone to be able to enjoy your expertise too. So thanks for joining us. And we'll wrap up this little section here, and let's get to cooking.
Excellent. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is the risotto. Risotto takes somewhere between 35 and 40 minutes to cook, so we need to time it out properly. The thing about risotto is you can't rush it, and so you need to just, as you said, it's a labor of love. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a half of an onion and I'm going to dice it up pretty fine. Okay. So you recommend slicing it that way, horizontally first and then going vertically? Yeah, I think it gives you a little finer chop. Okay. And this is kind of like somewhere in between a dice and a chop. So I'm just, going down like that, I get little squares and make a little mess everywhere. But if you talk to my wife, she'd tell you I'm not. Is she on dish duty? She'd say, sometimes he makes a mess. She might say he makes a mess often. So this is about right. It's about a half an onion. So once I get this chopped up, pretty fine here. Look at that, it's a perfect dice. It's not bad, yeah. And I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of butter. That's about 2 tablespoons.
All right. It has the measurements on the
It does,
the wax
and
paper
you'll
too.
notice I'm right around there. If you have a little extra butter,
Why
that can't
not?
be so bad, right?
Why not?
So I'm gonna
Don't tell your doctor.
come over here and I'm going to pop it in the pan. One of this on a medium heat, so
All right.
about half flame here. Going to get that butter melting. While the butter melts, I'm going to take this cutting board here. I'm going to bring this onion over and I'm going to slap it into the pot.
I love that sound when the onion hits that melted butter.
Yep, and we're not looking for brown here, we're looking for translucent. So my handy dandy spoonula, it's one of the best tools in the market. We're gonna get this butter melting and this onion softening a bit.
All right.
I want to take a little bit of kosher salt and just sprinkle it in here.
Now, do you prefer kosher salt rather than regular table salt just because of the flavor, or?
I prefer it because I can actually feel how much I'm putting in.
Ah, okay.
Table salt is really small and loose, and it's also iodized, which means if you're trying to do anything with it that would require not to have a color change. So the reason you use kosher salt or you use non-iodized salt when you do pickles, for instance, is because the iodization process will turn your pickles gray.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So it's really just kind of a more natural process, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we're going to just saute this butter and onion until it's translucent. This is takes 3 minutes maybe to do.
Okay.
Just kind of moving it
Till they're
around.
translucent.
We do not want browning on this stuff. We're not trying to caramelize anything here. We're just trying to...
So keep a close eye on it.
Yeah,
Keep a
yeah.
constant stir.
Now, interestingly enough, we're using this arborio rice here.
Okay. Arborio, it's the short grain.
It is very short grain. It's unlike long grain rice. What you want out of arborio is it's very willing to release the starches in it, and that's what gives you the creaminess in the risotto.
Okay.
Long grain rice has a different structure, and it's made to be fluffy and separate.
Okay.
This rice is not. The intention of this rice is to let go of its starch. So we're going to just move this around in the pan, and we're going to coat all of the grains as much as we can with the butter. The butter, one of the reasons we use butter in these recipes is it puts a coating on the rice that doesn't make it give up its starch as quickly as it would
Coats it?
without it. Yeah, it's kind of like a little protective coating on it. So we're going to just stir this rice. You want to stir it for about 4 or 5 minutes. Just want to see the ends of the rice starting to get translucent.
All right, and no browning still.
Right, so I'm turning the heat down a little bit. I'm figuring this out as we go. But you can smell just the onion in this alone, and the nuttiness of the rice makes it smell pretty good.
That's so true. I love the smell of onion and butter, and this is just going to be...
Now over here, I have this broth. This broth that I made came from reconstituting my wild mushrooms, and I mixed it about 50-50 with chicken broth.
Okay.
And then to kick it up just a little bit more, added about 3/4 of a cup of white wine, dry white wine.
Nice.
So now you see see how the rice is starting to get this sort of translucent color on the edges of it?
Okay, yes, so it's starting to...
So at this point, we want to take our rice and kind of level it out a little bit, and we're going to just take a ladle, and we're going to add enough liquid just to cover the rice. So...
a couple ladles there.
Yeah, it's going to take...
Depending on the size of the pan, right?
It should be about a cup at a time, roughly. So that's probably pretty good right there. Yeah. We're going to turn this down to a really low simmer. The other thing, you don't necessarily have to have a recipe to make risotto. What you need is just ratios. And the ratio simply is 1 part rice to about 3 to 4 parts liquid. And it's more a matter of just paying attention to what's going on in your pan. Like if you'll notice right now.
Yeah, because we're running out. I mean, the
see?
liquid, it was pretty high, and now it's
Yep.
really soaked in.
Right, so I can pull back my rice, and I can see the bottom of the pan.
Okay.
It's time to add more liquid.
Okay.
So here we go.
So this is our second time putting some broth in.
Yep.
How many times total? It just really depends on that ratio?
It's going to be somewhere around 3 to 4. I have a little extra broth here than I need because I'm going to use some of it for when I'm at the end of the cooking of the venison.
Perfect.
It's a good way to use the product in two different ways, and it's also a good way to tie everything together.
Oh, I love it.
So what we really need to do here is get to timing this properly, though, because I'm one of those guys who kind of likes all my food to get done somewhere around the same time.
Okay, that's good. So we don't have something freezing cold and something piping hot.
Yeah,
I like that style.
And the meat is kind of forgiving. You can cook meat, and then I guess the jury's out on this too. But most people tend to rest it because they think it redistributes the juices more. And so if you've got something like a meat dome or something, you can put it in and keep it warm. Then you've got a little bit of time. You've got 5 to 10 minutes after you've finished cooking it to finish up your other stuff.
Okay.
Now this is getting along to the point where I'm thinking it may be a good time to move on to the venison.
Yeah, we'll let it go
So
ahead. I'll be
can I get you to be my designated
stirrer
stirrer here?
Jason? Oh, I feel so important.
I'm going to move this up here in a moderately safe location.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, so venison. This is venison loin. This is the back of the deer. It's very tender because it's one of the least used muscles on the deer. It's very lean, as you can see. All of the fat's been trimmed off of it. So my preference is to go really, really simple with my seasonings. I've got kosher salt, and I've got fresh ground pepper. I set it somewhere around coarse, but not half pepper grind.
Not like you're going to burn your mouth off,
right?
Or break a tooth.
There's something about beef and red meat where having some good coarse pepper just kind of adds to it. So I'm going to put a lot of salt on this, and you're going to look at it and you may say, wow, he's putting a lot of
But
salt.
my cholesterol,
But
Jason.
you really need to liberally salt this stuff because the middle of it's not getting any salt. It's not like cooking a steak. So you want to put a fair amount of salt on it and quite a bit of black pepper.
Okay.
You'll notice I'm using one hand for my salt and one hand for the meat. I'm not doing the other two.
No cross-contamination.
I pat it in. I'm not afraid of touching it. I'm going to wash my hands afterward. Same thing here.
So both sides before you put it in the pan. make
Yeah,
sure
yeah, I
it's
can
all
steal
seasoned up.
old Emerald. You know, I don't like any of that one-sided meat or whatever. One-sided seasoning, I think he used to say all the time. That was one of his catchphrases. Same thing. Lots of pepper on this side. There we go. I've got olive oil. I put a little olive oil in, and then I put butter in because olive oil increases the heat temperature. If you put olive oil in and butter, then your butter won't burn. It can go at a higher temperature.
Okay, so the mix allows you to
And it
keep
also
higher.
tastes good.
Good
So there's
balance.
added benefits to both. So a pat of butter in here. Usually you can tell when it's time to put this in because the butter has a nice foaminess to it. It can even start turning a little bit brown, and that's okay because once the venison hits the pan, it's going to turn brown anyway.
All right.
But
so
you hear that
like
sizzle?
A tablespoon of olive oil to maybe a
I'd say
couple
2 tablespoons of butter. Yeah, maybe a tablespoon of olive oil.
Okay.
So now I'm putting the venison into the pan.
Look at that sizzle. I can see it turning brown, like you said. Wow.
And I'm not going to cook this very long. I just want to put some color on both sides of it. Color on both sides is
About
important.
how much time generally do you feel like on each side to get that brown?
Well, so depending on the cut of meat, these are small loins from a relatively small deer, so they're going to cook a lot faster. If I was cooking, say, a sirloin or something, which is a bigger cut of meat, I would probably cook it a minute or two on each side. These, I'm almost ready to flip these.
Okay.
I'm just trying to color these, and I'm going to add this rosemary into the butter. It's going to add a really nice infusion into the smell and the taste.
Fresh
and
rosemary, dried rosemary?
This is fresh. I prefer fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, so these I can tell by the smell. They're ready to flip. See that? You get the nice...
Oh, wow. Already a crust.
Yep.
And what is this, on high?
It's on, I'd say medium high.
Okay.
So this one is the same thing. It's got a nice color to it. I'm moving around the butter a little bit. And I'm going to take probably the thickest one of these, and I'm going to put my meat thermometer into it. You can cook this to 130 and it's fine to eat, and a lot of people would like to eat it that way. My family, I think the compromise is about 140 degrees. It's going to be medium rare, roughly.
And that's Fahrenheit, so anyone on the metric system.
Right. Don't cook it to 140. Yeah,
Celsius.
you might kill it. So I'm going to put my meat thermometer. We're going to take our meat thermometer. We're going to put it in halfway into this steak. We're going to leave it just like that. When this goes off, it'll be at 140 degrees. We're going to take it out. So I'm going to go transfer this, hopefully without touching the side of the pan, because that will definitely give us a bad reading. And I'm going to the convection oven. How hot! There we go. Yep, good stuff. That's in the oven. It won't take long.
So that allows it to cook on the inside. So we've seared kind of the outside of the venison.
Yes.
Now it's at 350 right now, you said?
It's at 350. It's a convection oven. It won't take that long. It may take 10 minutes or so to get up to temp.
Okay.
It's cooking, or the smell.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
But even then, there's still room to grow.
Oh, absolutely. I'm learning all the time. Believe me.
Full of opportunity.
While this is sort of simmering, if you want to...
Oh, I got my stirring duty? Perfect.
I'm going to come over here. These are the actual mushrooms that I foraged this summer. Well, we have our black trumpet mushrooms, black trumpets, and these are porcini mushrooms, also known as Boletus edulis. Ceps, there's all sorts of different names the Italians have for them. These are some of the most prized mushrooms that people hunt for in the summer months. They have a great taste. The porcini's a more meaty mushroom. The black trumpet is a very earthy mushroom. In combination, they're just really excellent. That broth right there kind of adds that mushroomy flavor to this risotto. This is just going to give some pieces to it and add some body to it.
And you found these, let's say, a 50-mile radius of Claremont, because I don't want to give up your spots.
I did indeed, yes.
Okay.
I've got several spots where I find these things throughout the summer. And fortunately, this past summer, it was wet. And for most people, that wasn't good. But for mushroom hunters, it was excellent.
Is that prime mushroom growing?
Absolutely. It was beautiful. I found more mushrooms this past summer than I ever have. It was a great summer. So now, I'm going to just rough chop these. You don't want it to be, a whole mushroom in your risotto. You'd like it to be a little bit more cohesive. So I'm just going to rough chop these up, and then in a little bit we're going to fold this in.
Jason's grabbing our venison out of the oven. And I love the tech. They have all of this equipment that they use for the culinary program. And look at this.
So the venison is out. Like I said, it got up to temp really fast. I'm going to take it now. I'm going to take it out of the pan. I'm going to put it on this plate here. Ooh. I'm going to put it on this plate.
So got some sizzle.
Yep. And that was the most gracious, or great. That was not the most graceful flop, but anyway.
Good.
In spirit of Alton Brown, I'm using this bowl, and I'm going to make a meat dome out of it. I'm going to put it over top, and it's going to keep the heat in. I'm going to set this here because we're going to do something good with this in just a little bit.
So these are the little bits and bobs that came from the searing?
So the French would call this fond.
Fond?
Yes, and it's just all of that good little caramelized pieces of meat and seasoning and things like that.
We've removed the rosemary.
Yep, and we're gonna leave that to sit as we continue with our risotto, because we're not done with the risotto yet.
Still stirring.
We are indeed.
Did we get some more? Because I put another one in while we were putting the steak,
No, it's good.
venison in the oven.
It's doing a thing. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
All right.
And once you can do that and you don't see any more liquid sort of rush into the bottom, that's when you want to add more.
Okay. So even if you can see the bottom, if the liquid starts to come out, just wait a little bit longer?
Yep.
All right.
Do you, could you grab a spoon?
Yes.
We're going to have to, like, sort of taste this at some point. With risotto, you kind of got to taste your seasoning as you go along. I tend not to put any real salt into it until I've tasted it because the chicken broth has salt. And okay, Dana, I'm going to add a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to use the rest to deglaze that pan, okay?
Okay, excellent. So this is our last ladle into the risotto.
Yeah, there we go. We're almost there. Okay, good.
We got a little bit left, and deglazing, that's
Deglazing means to take off all of the cool stuff that's tasty on the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to crank this heat up a little bit and get it sizzling. And all these cool little bits that are in this pan, that's all flavor. And if you just put water in this and flush it down the drain, it's a criminal act.
Yeah, it's got so much flavor in there.
Yeah.
Here, do you need me to stir while
would you, please?
Absolutely.
There we go.
All right. Oh, there we got some sizzling going on.
You get the sizzle, right? That's a good thing. So once we...
So is the butter completely gone, or is that part of the brown? Because I see what it looks like more olive oil with that color.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think they've just incorporated to each other. And so what we're going to do here, once the pan gets kind of screaming hot, is when you add this liquid to it, it's amazing how quickly all that stuff will come off the bottom of the pan. It's a good way to clean a pan too if you ever want to. Get it hot and then just add boiling water to it.
Soak it with soap.
Yeah. So that looks pretty good. I think I've got a good...
So you can use broth, you can use water to deglaze.
Wine.
I've seen people use wine,
Yeah, red wine. I like this. See that?
Ooh. Look at that steam off. It is. It's like magic. It's coming right off.
Yep. So it's basically just a basic pan sauce. I'm just moving this around, cleans everything off my pan. I'm going to let it cook for a little bit and it'll reduce, which simply means it takes water out of it and it brings it down, yeah.
It's so nice. It has like a nice sheen to it too.
Yeah, and you know, if you're really feeling the need, and a lot of people do it, and I'll do it now and again if I'm really feeling that way, I'll take a pat of butter and I'll swirl it into it at the end, and it adds a glossiness to it.
Okay.
But I have a feeling this one's got enough in it as it is.
Yeah, that looks beautiful. It really is. It's like restaurant quality. And this is, you know, something simple. I mean, you seared it, you put it in the oven, and then we just added some broth in. Super simple to do at home.
Sure is. You can also add, if you wanted a mushroom sauce, this would be a good time to add mushrooms. But so this has started to thicken up. I mean, it's not super thick, but it's getting there. The thing is, when it gets there fast. So you want to really pay attention to it.
Okay.
Kind of like when you're making caramel.
Because how dark are we looking? I mean, is it pretty much?
Yeah, it's just I'm looking more for a viscosity. I'm looking for a certain like almost coat the back of your spoon type of look. And once I get there, I'm pulling it off the heat because once I get there, it'll just keep going really fast. So I think I've gotten there right now, actually.
And then you might not have anything left if it evaporates
exactly.
too much?
So this is really good right here. So I'm going to take this off and I'm just going to put it over here. So there we've got this. Now, what makes it kind of a little brighter is a little bit of lemon zest. My microplane grater, which you can also accomplish probably with a rasp from the hardware store, but this is a microplane. It does a nice, fine grate. You just want the yellow part. You don't want the white part.
And does the zest give a better flavor than would the juice kind of make a strange acidity in there, or?
Yeah, this just gives a little citrus note without giving that sweetness or tartness necessarily. It just gives it something else. I've also seen it done with a little bit of nutmeg in it.
Oh yeah, give it a little.
And that would be good. You can really do whatever you want. It's your risotto, right?
Exactly, to your taste. I like it, like elevating it rather than kind of muting any of the flavors.
Yeah, you'll also see that when we plate this, we're gonna put something acidic on the plate too, because a lot of richness really uses to be cut with acidity. Now I'm just gonna put some some Parmigiano Reggiano on here.
And you can't use that unless it's from the Parma region of Italy, right? Parmigiano Reggiano?
That's correct.
And is that your cheese of choice for the risotto, or just in general?
If I'm going to use a Parmesan, yes. I'm a snob, and I don't like the smell of that pre-grated Parmesan cheese. Never have. So, Parmigiano Reggiano. I'm just going to stir it in.
Right in. Wow. And just adds to the creaminess. And
it does. That cheese. It also adds a little saltiness to it. And before I put it out to anybody, I'm going to
taste it.
Yeah.
Chef always tastes their food before presenting.
It's pretty good.
Good? All right.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. Got some juices already there too.
So. Ah, see, that's beautiful.
Wow. Perfect. And medium rare?
That's my preference, yes,
Right.
and that's about where it is, right there.
Wow. And it cuts just, it's like seemingly just like butter, right?
Sure
Very
is,
smooth
yep.
through. And are you cutting against the grain with that to make sure it's...
Well, this is just the nature of this type of muscle. I'm cutting across the grain, yes.
Okay.
Yep. The grains are running this way. Yep.
So if you cut it the other way, would it be chewier?
It would, yes. It would be stringy. Fortunately.
Yeah, so you just have to make sure which way everything's running. Because you mentioned that earlier, right? You have to make sure it's cleaned properly, and you don't want to have the gamey taste that people kind of refer to if they say they don't like wild game.
Exactly,
So these are
yep.
the techniques to be able to avoid that. So this is absolutely beautiful, Jason. I can't even tell you how excited I am to be able to showcase local cooks that can make food like this. This is amazing. So we are gonna dig in, and I'm so sorry anyone at home doesn't get to try this, because it is beautiful, it smells amazing, it cuts like so smooth. Here we go. Look at that. Wow. Can you adopt me, Jason? Can I eat like this every day? This is so incredible. That meat, like, you wouldn't even know it was anything like, it tastes exactly like something at a fine dining steakhouse, but it's something that your family sent to you. This is amazing. And then we'll try the risotto. Let's see. Wow. I'm a mushroom lover, but this is the tops. This is amazing. All right, and then
Yeah,
I know we didn't make these.
I like the acid to just kind of cut it a little bit because it's pretty rich.
It is, but you know what? For a cold day like it is today, this is like, it is. It balances it with the acid. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today with Jason Benware, our local cook for Community of Fair. We're so excited that we get to be here at the Tech in Claremont, New Hampshire, for their gracious ability to let us use this facility and make food like this to show and share with you all. So thank you again for being here tonight, and keep it cooking, Claremont.